What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers. We're going to take a deep dive into UFC Long Island. We have 12 fights to break down. A couple fights that fell off. We lost the Phil Rowe fight, which kind of sucks. We lost a couple other fights, but we still have 12 fights as of now, so definitely looking forward to it. As always, I am here with everybody's favorite uncle. We have Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to this card?
Oi, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. There's some good fights here. There's really only one trash fight on this card that I was just like, oh, I don't like this one, but everything else is good. There appear to be some live dogs on this card. You got Miesha Tate making her debut at 125. The Simon Shore fight, I mean, that's going to be a banger. Also, Soriano, Lungiambula, and these are prelim fights. Jacoby Jung. Burns Algeo. I'm fired up for this one, man. Long Island is going to have some really great fights on Saturday. So let's chop it up. Let's talk about it. Find a way to make some money on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from like a fan perspective, this card is really good. I think the fight's going to be very exciting. From a betting perspective, not a ton of spots sticking out as of now. Maybe some will stick out after we talk through it, but it might be another light week for me. The last 2 weeks have been super light. I actually had a combined like 8 units on the last 2 cards, and I already have 8.5 units on UFC London for next week. So this might be another card where I kind of keep it light here, but we'll talk a little bit about last night. I will kick us off. And yeah, I took the day off. I was kind of burnt out, and it felt good to just not watch the fights. But I took a look at the results from last night, and there were some really weird results. First off, Sayud Jakob Kakramanov, 10 takedowns against Ronnie Lawrence. He took Ronnie Lawrence's game plan and went against him there. Kennedy Nzechukwu with 5 takedowns. Kennedy putting it together. What else was weird there? Oh, this was weird to me. Ricky Tercios was 27 for 235. I didn't watch the fight, but I'm convinced he must have fought blindfolded Weezy. I mean, that was 11% accuracy. And then the other weird one was Chase Sherman actually won a fight in the UFC. So shout out to Chase Sherman. Of course, Jared Vanderaa, like we talked about, Weezy. How can we trust Jared Vanderaa to go out there and go for takedowns? And he went for 0. But yeah, guys, I kept it real light. I had 3 bets. The first bet of the night was Garrett Armfield, David Onama, my biggest bet of the night, under 2.5 rounds, 2 units, minus 175, probably my most confident spot on the card. The next spot of the night was Trayshawn Gore, 1 unit, minus 113. Beat a lot of linemen with there. I saw the replay and a beautiful knockout by Cody Brundage. Really bad bet on that part. But if I was going to lose anything, glad I lost that one because it was a big loss for me, but a big win for the MMA engine. And then ended the night with a fight doesn't go to decision bet. And I actually was able to watch the main event the last couple rounds. And I thought my fight doesn't go to decision bet was kind of dead in the water. And then in the 5th round, out comes Fiziev and it hurts Dos Anjos bad, puts him down and puts him out on the mat. So yeah, although I had no confidence in this card, felt very sketchy about it. Plus 1.34 units on the night. Extremely happy about that. Kept it light and won. Kept it light last week and won. And I'm probably going to keep it light this week, and then just really attack the UFC London card. So Weezy, I know you as well did keep it light as well, which I said on Twitter, like the best bet I made last night was keeping it very light. There was a lot of unpredictable outcomes last night. So you kept it light as well, and you came out with the winning night also.
Yeah, dude, I kept it so light that I made Brady look irresponsible last night because like he had twice as many bets as I did. And one of the bets that I had just pushed because it was a finish only prop for Ayman Zahabi. So that one pushed. I had a 2-unit parlay on the money lines for Bohayo and Fiziev, which was plus 112. I got to it late, but cashed that one for 2.25 units. So up 2.25 units. Those are the only 2 bets I had. But man, first of all, let's talk about a couple of things. Kennedy and Nzechukwu looking like Cain Velasquez out there. And I've been saying it on Stat Diggers how many weeks in a row when we've had a Kennedy and Nzechukwu fight. What happens if this guy ever starts to put it together? And we saw that first big step by showing a part of his game that he had never showed before. And he looked absolutely fantastic doing it. And man, does he have the body and the gas tank to push that kind of a game plan. So I think we're going to see Kennedy a big favorite in his next fight after that performance. And then we talked about the walking concussion, Jared Vanderaa, and about how he needed to take down Chase Sherman in order to win this fight. And what does the walking concussion do? After seeing his opponent get drowned by Fat Collier 2 fights ago in 1 round after getting 1 takedown. Jared Vandera in almost 15 minutes of cage time. 0 takedown attempts. I mean, when you name somebody the walking concussion, it feels so good when they fight a game plan that would be attributed to somebody with the nickname the walking concussion. So that was just awful. Caio Borralho was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Loved the game plan from him. You know, people say that there are boring fighters, and I understand that. Like, Israel Adesanya has been boring, but there's nothing boring about putting your money on a fighter who does exactly what they need to do in order to make their opponent uncomfortable, to easily win minutes. When it comes to gambling, we love boring fighters, and Caio Borralho made it very exciting with a boring performance if you had money on him, because, you know, every time it looked like Arman was going to land a big shot, he just ducked underneath it, got the easy takedown, and won a bunch of minutes on the ground. Fiziev looked really solid, but, you know, Dos Anjos made that very close. Good card, you know, a good card, ready to get into this next one, put in the work on this one so we can maybe find a couple more units on this card, Brady.
Absolutely looking forward to it. And I say we get started. Before we do so, guys, if you guys can please leave a like. As always, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We have 120 of you already in here with us. Appreciate you hanging out, and let's try to get 100 likes by the time we get out of here. And I say we start off, Weezy. So we have 12 fights. The first fight of the night is, first off, we got a Dono. WizBets. What is up, WizBets? You guys are the best. Thank you for the hard work. Thank you, WizBets, for hanging out with us, and thank you for the Dono. It does mean a lot. All right, here we go. We have Emily Ducote going against Jessica Penne. We have Penne, who is 39 years old, 5'5", with a 69-inch reach. Emily Ducote. Dakota. What is it? Ducote?
Yeah, I think Ducote. Ducote. Like, yeah, Ducote.
There we go. It's pronounced so weird. Okay, but yeah, she's 20 years old, 5'2", with a 64-inch reach. Ducote is 11 years younger. It's going to be Penne with a 3-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. Jessica Penne, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. A knockout loss against Joanna, a knockout loss against Jessica Andrade, a decision loss to Danielle Taylor, a decision win against Lupe Godinez, and then a submission win against KK. Emily Ducote, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights, and she'll be making her debut here, coming off of a knockout win. I believe it was in the 2nd or 3rd round. Yeah, Weezy, we'll let you kick this one off. I mean, I feel like it's probably a good spot for Ducote. She's much younger, 11 years younger. I think that's big there. On top of that, she's shown solid takedown defense. I think she probably just keeps us on the feet and picks apart Jessica Penne. Penne is like 39 years old. That is more than getting up there in age. Her last 2 wins, I mean, Carolina, she was on her way out. I think she's retired at this point. Or wait, no, it was Felice Herrig that retired, right? So Carolina got a winner last fight against Felice Herrig. Against Godinez, I thought that Godinez won that fight. And then, of course, 3 losses prior to that. I think Ducote should win this fight. And, yeah, I watched her. I think she's fine. I think she's solid. Didn't like extremely impress me, but I think she probably has the tools and stuff to take downs, and I think she'll be the better striker here. So Ducote probably by decision. Weezy, what's sticking out to you on this very first fight of the night?
Yeah, you know, I mean, we got Ducote 11 years younger, so we love that. But Penne much bigger, 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage, couple more pro fights, a lot more UFC experience, obviously. So Penne's got that experience edge. We look at the finishing numbers here. 71% finish rate for Penne as a pro, and for Ducote, 63%. So a little bit better rate for Penne, but Ducote's been a lot more durable, as she's only been finished in 1 of 6 losses. It was by submission, while Penne's been finished in 2 of 3 UFC losses and in 3 of 5 pro losses. When it comes to the striking, Ducote should be the better striker here, just because, you know, it's not Penne's game. You know, she's landing 2.83 significant strikes per minute and absorbing 5.82. So she's almost absorbing 3 more significant strikes per minute than she's landing. But that's kind of fine with Jessica at this point, because she's not trying to win minutes in the striking. She's trying to grapple. And I think it's important to kind of look at this new version of Jessica Penne, because we hadn't seen Jessica Penne prior to the Lupita Godinez fight since, I believe, 2017 or 2018. There was like a 5-year break for her. Some of it USADA related, others some other stuff, I think. So either way, we hadn't seen her in a while. Now in these last 2 fights, impressive wins against Godinez and Kovacevic. Jessica Penne has been in control time positions for or against about 66% of those last 2 fights. And you can just kind of tell the way that she's fought, she's selling out to get to those grappling positions. She'll pull guard. She'll try to take your back standing. She's looking to get the fight to the ground, looking for arm bars, looking for triangles, things of that nature. She doesn't mind giving up minutes on the back, but she's going to sell out to get it to the grappling. And we've seen Ducote submitted before. So it's an interesting striker versus grappler matchup. You know, the question is, can Ducote keep this fight at striking range long enough in order to win enough minutes there to survive the full 15? Because Jessica is going to be very dangerous in these grappling exchanges, and she has done a very good job in these last 2 fights, as we've seen this 38 and 39-year-old version of Jessica Penne be 2-0 and get fights into grappling positions for 2/3 of the minutes that she's been in the cage in those 2 fights. 2 really impressive victories too. The Godinez fight was close, and then Kovacevic, she got Kovacevic to jump into her guard, which was a terrible move by Kovacevic, and she wound up submitting her because of that. Now, we've just got to make sure that Ducote, if you're on that side, she has to know you do not follow this girl to the ground. You do everything you can to keep it on the feet, because you will win minutes there. Jessica Penne couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat, and her striking defense is sub 46%. Ducote needs to keep this fight on the feet. If she does, I think she wins easily. If Jessica gets this fight into the grappling realm, though, she's going to be very live for a submission here. I could see this fight finishing inside the distance, Brady.
Yeah, potentially could. And we see that they do have lines out for on Bet Online, like a couple fights for the over-unders. But Five Dimes seems to have the majority of the props out already. But yeah, they have the over-under, over minus 200. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 160. The fight goes decision is minus 170. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 130. Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Ducote. I mean, she's so much younger. If Penne came out here as a 39-year-old strawweight and got the win, I mean, that would be super impressive. But I feel like Ducote has all the tools to keep it on the feet, fight smart. So yeah, I like Ducote here, but I don't really bet on these fights anymore. Retired from doing that. Ducote is a favorite. Opened up minus 135. She's currently minus 135. Penne opened up plus 115. She's currently plus 115. So looks like this is the closest line fight on the card, Weezy.
I'm not surprised, because like it is a striker versus grappler matchup. And then, as many reasons as there are to like Penne because of those last 2 performances, because of her being focused on just getting the fight to the grappling, whatever it takes. It's easy to see her having success. And then you got somebody like Ducote who's been begging to get into the UFC forever. She's finally got her shot here. She's taking it on short notice, I believe, because Jessica was supposed to fight somebody else. So this is her opportunity, and I think she knows to keep this fight standing at all costs. She's 11 years younger. They're at completely different places in their career. So I see why it's lined close, and there's reasons to like both fighters in this spot.
Yep, absolutely. But it should be an interesting fight to kick off the card. Let's move on to the next fight. And yeah, we have Dwight Grant going against Dustin Stoltzfus. Dwight Grant, 37 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. Dustin Stoltzfus, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Stoltzfus, 7 years younger. That's going to be Dwight Grant with a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Dwight Grant, 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a split decision win over Alain Jourdain, a knockout loss against Yair Rodriguez, and one of the most exciting 2-minute fights you'll ever see. A decision win against Stefan Sekulik, a decision loss against Francisco Trinaldo, and then a knockout loss against Sergey Kondoshko. Dustin Stoltzfus, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Kyle Dawkins, lost that by decision. Prior to that, he won by a TKO on the Contender Series. His opponent got injured, and then he lost by submission against Rodolfo Vieira in the 3rd round, and then also a submission loss to Gerald Mearshart in the 3rd round as well. So this is a tough fight to call for me, Weezy. I don't know what it is about Dwight Grant, but his fights are always just so tough to call. I mean, he's big, he's explosive, but at this point, he's 37 years old. He's just so inconsistent. Sometimes this guy shows up, he looks really good. going out there and knocking out his opponent. Sometimes he shows up, he doesn't throw anything the entire fight. A lot of times his fights are boring outside of like the Kondoshko fight was fun, the Rodriguez fight was fun, but a lot of these fights are kind of slow paced, not a ton going on. Stoltzfus is a grappler here. If he can get the fight down to the mat, I think he can have success. Dwight Grant, pretty solid takedown defense, pretty solid get-up game. I think this is another competitive fight on the second fight of the night, Weezy. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this one, man. This is a weird one. Like you say, Grant's fights are just hard to handicap. You know, he's different. His style is a little bit different. 4 for 4 on takedowns, but less than 3% control time in 83 minutes of cage time. So very, very weird. You know, this guy doesn't really get into grappling positions that often, while Stoltzfus, on the other hand, 22% control time for, 35% control time against. So, you know, he's spending almost 60% of his fights, you know, in control time positions for or against. So, you know, I think that Grant's probably going to want to keep this standing, try to land that big shot. And Stoltzfus is okay on the feet, but, you know, he's definitely more of a grappler. If we look at, you know, Grant's fought definitely the better brand of competition here, having a 1.84 ratio compared to 1 for Stoltzfus overall, and a little bit more experienced competition on his resume. And, you know, and he's got some wins against guys that have done something in the UFC, while the only win for Stoltzfus is against Body Bags Pfeiffer, who dislocated his elbow trying to, you know, post up while he was getting taken down. So, yeah, it's you know, with Grant, you got to. And by the way, Brady, do you know, is this at 170 or is it 185? Is Stoltzfus moving down or is Grant moving up here? Because that's definitely something we need to know. Because
right. 185.
Yeah, so Grant's moving up here, you guys. He's not fought at 185 yet in the UFC. So maybe he just doesn't want to make that cut anymore. Maybe he feels like he was chinny at 170 because he got knocked out by Kondoshko. But I mean, there's a lot of red flags here on both of these fighters. It's hard to back either one of them. What do we got for a line here?
Yeah, the line is, it should be another close one, and it is, we have Dwight Grant opening up minus 175, currently minus 155. Stoltzfus opening up plus 150, currently plus 135. It's I don't think I'll be betting on this one. It's a tough fight to call because I think, you know, Grant has all the physical tools. I think the takedown defense is solid. I think the get-up game is very solid. I think he'll be the better striker, but the low output, him moving up a weight class, him getting knocked out just a few months ago, a lot of red flags, man. So there's no way I can lay juice here on Dwight Grant. I see a lot of people taking the dog shot on Stoltzfus. I don't hate it, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to get this fight down to the mat and keep it there is my only problem.
Yeah, I mean, 5 takedowns, 15 attempts for Stoltzfus in 4 fights. 22% control time for. So he's not like this control time master. He's not like this chain wrestling god or anything like that. And Grant's done a good job of keeping fights on the feet. 8 fights, he's had 25 takedowns shot against him. He's been taken down 1.43 times per 15 minutes, but, you know, less than 15% control time allowed. And that's, you know, probably about, I would say about 11 minutes of control time allowed on 8 takedowns. So, you know, it's not like he's getting, you know, controlled a lot on the ground. You know, we can't really just say, oh, Stoltzfus is going to go out there and just blanket this dude like Kennedy did to Roberson yesterday. So, yeah, it's a big stay away from me. Neither one of these guys is very reliable, in my opinion. And maybe I'll look at the time props, but other than that, I think I'm just going to stay away from this one.
The over 2.5 rounds, plus 105. The under 2.5 rounds, minus 135. The fight goes to decision, plus 135. The fight doesn't get the decision, minus 175. Yeah, I'm just going to stay away. Anything sticking out to you there?
Yeah, 7 of their 12 combined fights are finished inside the distance. That's 58%, but you're paying 63% on the implied probability of the line at minus 175. And 185-pound fights are finishing 55% of the time. So it looks like we're overpaying for violence here. Probably a little more value on the fight goes to decision, but that's not exactly a big bargain either. This is the fight I was talking about when I said I don't know about, you know, one of these fights looks like absolute trash just from a betting perspective, from getting behind it and putting your money on it. And this is the one. So I say we move on to the next one, which is going to be an absolute banger.
Absolutely, man. People in the chat are already talking about it. Just goes to show that this fight's good, and the last fight probably is not too good. We have Dustin Jacoby going against Da Un Jung. We have Dustin Jacoby, 34 years old, 6'3", with a 76-inch reach. Da Un Jung, 28 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach. It's going to be Da Un Jung that's going to be 6 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. So tail the tape heavily in favor of Da Un Jung. Jacoby is 4-0-1 draw in his last fight, had a decision win against Maxim Grishin, a split decision draw against Ion Kudalaba, a knockout win against Darren Stewart, a decision win against John Alon, and then a decision win against Mikhail Olazechuk. As far as Da Un Jung, he is 4-0-1 draw in his last 5 fights as well. A submission win against Kadis Ibrahimov, a knockout win against Mike Rodriguez, a draw against Sam Alvey, a decision win against William Knight, and then a knockout win against Kennedy Nzechukwu. Yeah, I think this is up to this point the best fight we're going to talk about. Weezy clearly should be a very fun one. We have 2 guys that are both great strikers, and then we also have Da Un Jung, who showed he can go that takedown route as well. So should be a fun one here. Weezy, how do you feel about this one?
I feel like this is going to be a super fun fight. I mean, with Da Un Jung, this kid is only 28 years old, and he's got 18 professional fights in a 7-year career. So, a very young prospect here. And then you got Jacoby, who debuted in the UFC a long time ago, and then, didn't have much success, wound up going back to being a kickboxer, and then came back to MMA. Since he's been back, man, Dustin Jacoby, I believe, is 6-0-1 in the UFC since he's returned, and that's including the Contender Series fight. He's on a roll. Factory X product, just like our guy Cody Brundage last week, who came out and shocked the world. And Cody told me, he said, my striking is a lot better than everybody thinks it is. And it's because I've been at Factory X. And then anytime I want to get a look against a bigger guy in the gym, I can go and work with Dustin Jacoby, with Anthony Smith. And these guys are sharpening up my striking seriously. So, you get to see the steps that Cody Brundage is making over at Factory X. And part of it is because he's working with guys like Dustin Jacoby, who's just a masterful kickboxer. The guy knows how to set traps. He knows how to use all of his weapons. He maintains a good pace throughout the fight. His striking is fantastic. So it's a great fight. Jacoby's more experienced, got about 5 more fights, about 40 more minutes in the cage, about 4.5 more years as a pro, 4 more UFC level fights, about 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. Jacoby finishing at a 65% clip overall as a pro, while Da Un Jung is finishing at an 86% clip overall and 75% at the UFC level, while for Jacoby it's 33% at the UFC level. So definitely Da Un Jung is the better finisher here. And he's been finished once in 2 losses as Jung, and Jacoby's been finished in 3 of his 5 losses. Now, when it comes to the stand-up, it's hard to say that Da Un Jung is the better striker here. He's a very good striker, but like Jacoby, Jacoby's got that pedigree. And we've seen him now at the UFC level just win minutes in a lot of fights on the feet. He will get taken down, but he always works to get back up. He's very difficult to keep down, and he finds ways to win minutes on the feet. 5.68 significant strikes landed a minute for Jacoby, only 3.85 absorbed. So he's almost landing 2 more significant strikes per minute than he's absorbing. And he's also out-voluming his opponents by at least 2.5 significant strike attempts per minute. 46% accuracy, 3 knockdowns in 9 fights, and 0.42 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Da Un Jung landing about 0.25 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, throwing about 0.75 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. Really nice power numbers, though, on Jung, as he's only landed 186 significant strikes, but he has 3 knockdowns in 5 fights, and they come in 3 different fights. So he's spreading them around, and he's finding a way to win moments with his striking and land that big shot. He's also never been knocked down, and he's showing a 55% striking defense. So it'll be Jacoby that's the more defensively responsible striker here. When it comes to the grappling, we don't see Jacoby grappling much offensively. And outside of the William Knight fight, we haven't seen Da Un Jung even get a takedown at the UFC level. outside of that fight. All 8 of those takedowns for Jung over his 5-fight sample size did come in the William Knight fight. So 31.66% control time for and only 7.37% control time against shows that Da Un Jung is going to be the more efficient grappler, right? He's getting 8 takedowns for every 1 that his opponent is getting. He's getting about 4.5 seconds of control time for every 1 that he allows, and he's getting 2.6 takedowns per 15 minutes and stopping takedowns at an 89% clip. So, while Jacoby will probably be the better minute winner on the feet, I think Da Un Jung will probably be the more likely guy to win minutes up against the cage and on the ground. However, both of these guys have done a pretty good job of keeping fights standing when they want it there. And because of that, I really do think that Jacoby's got the edge in this fight. Jacoby, though, has not fought the better brand of competition here, as Jung has a better ratio and has more total fights on aggregate with his opponents than Jacoby does. And when it comes to the wins that these guys have, I got to favor that as well for Jung. So Jung's younger. He's fought the better brand of competition thus far at the UFC level. And I think that his grappling efficiency is a little bit better than Jacoby's. But Jacoby's more experienced. Jacoby is the better striker. And I think he's done a good job at keeping fights at striking distance long enough. Although his takedown defense is only 60%, he's not getting held down. He's getting 4.5 takedowns per fight shot against him, but he's spending less than 15% of his UFC cage time being controlled. And a lot of that came in his first 3 fights before he went to kickboxing. So, I do like Dustin Jacoby to get the job done here. I think it's going to be a great fight, though, a really exciting one to watch.
Yep, for sure. Even you guys did horrible this past UFC. Me and Weezy both had winning nights. So, I wouldn't call that horrible, but appreciate you, Ivan, for hanging out. Yeah, this should be a close fight here, Weezy. I'm with you. I think the minute winner is going to be Dustin Jacoby. I think he's the better striker, and people are talking about it in the chat. Dustin Jacoby did not look great in his last fight. Apparently, he was injured, and he only landed like 2 kicks in that fight against Mikhail Olazechuk. Everybody was like, what's going on? Why isn't he kicking? Well, apparently he was injured. So maybe he didn't look great because of that. But yeah, I think he's going to be the better striker here. I think the more powerful striker is Da Un Jung. This guy obviously has a ton of power. He knocked out Kennedy Nzechukwu with an elbow to his guard. So yeah, he just has a ton of power. And then also the takedown game of Da Un Jung. I like the takedown defense of Dustin Jacoby. I like the get up game of Dustin Jacoby as well. So although he was able to do that to William Knight, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that to Dustin Jacoby there. So yeah, I lean Dustin Jacoby as well, but I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think it's going to run away with this. I think it's going to be competitive. I think on the feet, Jacoby probably should be landing more volume, having more success. Da Un Jung probably lands the better shots. Da Un Jung probably can mix in some takedowns here or there as well. It should be a fairly competitive fight. So I get why the line is kind of close here. We got Jacoby opening up -110 pick'em, currently -145. Da Un Jung opening up -110 pick'em, currently +125. So closely lined. Any thoughts on that line there?
Yeah, I kind of like Jacoby, but the plus money on Jung is definitely interesting. He's a young man. And that's the weird thing. You look at a guy like Brundage, for instance, only 28 years old, and you see that he's been in Factory X for 2 years, and then you go out there and you're just assuming that Gore is going to be the better striker because that's what we've seen on tape. But when you're 28 years old, you can be making those kind of improvements. Dustin Jacoby's 34. We know what Dustin Jacoby we're going to get out there. We're going to get a very good kickboxer who throws a lot of volume, who's accurate, who doesn't waste a lot of energy, very meat and potatoes, and good volume and really good conditioning. So we know we're going to get that out of him. But when you got a 28-year-old kid in Da Un Jung here who's already got 18 fights, it was like Kennedy and Nzechukwu yesterday. You're like, these guys are still young and they still got that room to get better. So if you're on that Jung side on the plus money, you've got that to hang your hat on, that you're saying, shit, man, we might see an even better version of Da Un Jung than we saw last time in the Nzechukwu fight that we saw before that in the William Knight fight. And he looked fantastic in those 2 fights. That Nzechukwu win is probably going to go down as a good one, dude, because that guy looks like he's getting a lot better. So great fight. a lot of reasons to like both of these guys, but I'm on the Jacoby side here.
Sounds good. And then as far as like the fight goes to decision plus 100. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 140. I guess I'd lean fight goes, but probably not going to bet it. Any thoughts on that?
Let me look here. So we got 6 of their 14 fights, Brady, have finished inside the distance when it comes to Jacoby and Jung at the UFC level. That's only 43%. The fight doesn't go to decision right now is juiced up at 58%. So we're overpaying by about 14.4% based on the divisional finish rates of 57.29%. And we're overpaying by about 15.5% on the implied probability of the line at 58.33% when we compare it to that 43% finish rate for both of these guys. So fight goes to decision at plus 100. Looks like the way to play this. And 57% of their fights have went to decision thus far. That's 7% better than the implied probability of the line, 14.4% better than the divisional decision rate. I think the plus money on fight goes would be the way to play this one here.
Sounds good. I don't hate it. Let's keep moving on. We have Herbert Burns going against Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo was supposed to fight Billy Quarantillo, and Herbert Burns was supposed to fight, what was that guy's name?
Hussein Ashkabov,
which is he's 23-0. So that would have been a good fight, but luckily they are going to be matched up against each other. So we only lost one fight as a whole there. But Herbert Burns, he is 34 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. Bill Algeo, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach as well. So Bill Algeo is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and also is going to be 1 year younger. Herbert Burns made his debut against Nate Landwehr, won that fight by a knockout. Prior to that, submitted Derek Minner. A submission win against Evan Dunham in the very first round, and then a knockout loss against Daniel Pineda in the second round. As far as Bill Algeo, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut on short notice. Lost to Ricardo Lemos, made a really good account for himself there. Won by decision against Spike Carlisle after that, and then a decision loss against Ricardo Lemos. And then just as of recent, a decision win against Joe Anderson Brito. So yeah, should be a very fun fight here. I think Herbert Burns is a very exciting fighter. A lot of power on the feet. He had a brutal knockout against Nate Landwehr. On top of that, his submission game is next level. His wrestling's good. I do worry about the cardio of Herbert Burns, which could play a factor in this fight against Bill Algeo, who never slows down. But yeah, this should be a very fun fight. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
I think it's a great one, dude. And I mean, god damn, dude. I mean, like, I'm glad they made this fight because Ashkabov against Burns was going to be so good. And Billy Quarantillo against Algeo was one of the fights that I was looking forward to most this year. I mean, you want to talk about 2 all-action fighters that bring a ton of cardio. That would have been a great one. But I love the stylistic matchup here. Burns is not in boring fights. Bill Algeo is not in boring fights. So this is going to be an absolute banger. But Algeo is the younger guy, the taller guy here. He's the switch stance fighter. He's got 7 more professional fights. He's got about 160 more minutes in the pro cage. He's got 1 more UFC level fight and about 60 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Burns here. Burns is the much better finisher. Burns has finished all 3 of his UFC wins. He's got an 82% finish rate as a pro, finishing 9 of his 11 pro wins. And he's been finished in his only UFC loss, and he's been finished in 1 of 3 pro losses. Algeo has a 60% finish rate, and he's been finished in 2 of his 6 losses, both of those finishes coming by way of submission. So Burns has got that path to finish via submission against anybody because he's just that talented of a submission grappler. When you look at the strikes here, over a 4-fight sample size, Burns is not looking good on the feet, landing 1.67 significant strikes a minute and absorbing 5. A 33% striking defense. Nice. Is very, very alarming. 45% striking accuracy, but he does have 1 knockdown in 4 fights, which is giving him a knockdown on 3.7% of the significant strikes that he's landing. Algeo, really nice striking numbers here as he lands about almost 1.5 significant strikes per minute more than he absorbs. And he's throwing about over 3 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents are. So Algeo has done a really good job of winning minutes on the feet. But as we can see here, when we go down to the grappling numbers, Burns' fights taking place in control time positions almost 75% of the time, so he's very good at just not keeping the fight standing where he's got that 33% striking defense. He wants to be, whether he's on the top or the bottom, in that grappling realm, hunting for submissions. And as we can see here, Burns is getting 4.64 takedowns per 15 minutes and 2.79 submission attempts per 15 minutes. What's troubling here for the Algeo side is that Algeo has had 49 takedowns shot against him in 5 fights, and he's given up 22 of them. 55% striking defense, and he's being taken down 4.4 times per 15 minutes. So look, this looks like Herbert Burns round 1. If it gets out of round 1, Herbert Burns has terrible conditioning, and Bill Algeo has excellent conditioning. So at that point, it's going to be very difficult for Herbert Burns to get the fight to the ground unless he's pulling guard or trying some Imanari rolls or some crazy shit. And as the fight goes on, you're going to see that gas tank really, really abandon him. And that's going to be a bad thing against somebody like Algeo. Algeo has not finished any fights at the UFC level. But I think if he wins this fight, it's going to be via finish, because Burns just doesn't have a 15-minute gas tank. He's going to try to take you down early. He's going to sell out for that submission, and if he doesn't get it, he's going to go back to his stool looking like garbage. So this is a very interesting fight. Loving fight doesn't go to decision here because all 5 of Algeo's fights at the UFC level have seen the scorecard. So I think we're going to get a good price here. But Herbert Burns is that killer be killed fighter, that archetype of fighter that we love to bet violence on, especially when they're incredibly dangerous with submissions. And then you pair that with the piss poor gas tank that can only take him about 7 minutes. I see this one finishing inside the distance. I think you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was saying, especially if he has a bad weight cut as well. So this is one where I want to take a look at the scales, because you said that he missed weight in his last 2 fights, right?
149.5 is where Herbert Burns has weighed in his last 2 fights. So he's not even close to making weight. This fight, once again, at 145, and he hasn't fought since.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. A lot of red flags here on Herbert Burns, and he's 34 years old too. So bad weight cut potentially. I don't know why he hasn't been fighting. And 2 weight misses in his last 2 fights. And bad conditioning. So I kind of feel like if you're on the Herbert Burns side, man, go for first round submission. That's his path. Maybe he gets a second round submission. Maybe the conditioning is better, but we can only go by what we've seen. And, when you see the bad conditioning, that's one thing. And then you pair it with 2 straight weight misses, huge red flags here. Algeo round 2, Algeo round 3 will probably be some props I'm looking at this week. I'll be probably smashing a fight doesn't go to decision if I can get it close to even money. And I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's going to be a very fun one. I think it's going to finish inside the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a good one. And I do kind of strongly lean towards the Algeo side. I can't pick Herbert Burns with the cardio, with the weight cutting issues. I obviously need to see him at the weigh-ins, but Bill Algeo is not the guy you really want to slow down against. Algeo is going to have a ton of output on the feet. And yes, Algeo has a horrible takedown defense, but his get-up game is elite. He is now a black belt in BJJ. He has been sub twice, but his last submission losses were back in 2012 and then 2014, I think against Shane Burgos back in 2014. So has not been submitted in a while. I feel like Algeo can weather the early storm and definitely put it on Burns late. Let's take a look at this money line. We have Bill Algeo opening up as a -120 favorite. I would have liked that. He's currently -170. Herbert Burns opened up +100. He's currently +145. The fight goes to decision -130, and the fight doesn't go to decision is -110. The over 2.5 rounds is -150, and the under 2.5 rounds is +120. Then also going to be looking at those props, the Algeo round 3, something to look at, and then Herbert Burns round 1 as well. Weezy, anything sticking out money line, and obviously that fight doesn't go to decision at -110.
Yeah, so we were looking at Burns, 4 of 4 UFC fights finishing inside the distance. Algeo, 0 of 5 fights finishing inside the distance. So you have the killer be killed fighter against the decisionator. So usually when that happens, you're going to get, whether it's the decision prop or whether it's the fight go or fight doesn't go, you're going to get it at a good price because you've got one against the other. You just need to figure out whose style gets pushed and then what happens when that style gets pushed. Now, in this case, I think it's easier to love violence rather than the fight goes to decision because we have Herbert Burns being so dangerous early. And because he's dangerous when he grapples, he's going to have to sell out for that grappling. He doesn't have the gas tank to do it, especially, man, if we see these guys have trouble making weight. I'm going to be all over that fight doesn't go to decision at -110. That is going to be an auto bet for me.
Sounds good, but we probably don't get it anywhere near -110. Probably.
But you know what? We might, though, just because Algeo has been a decision all 5 times, and that's going to factor into how these things get priced. So we can just hope, Brady. We can hope that when it does get released on books that we have access to, that it might be there, and we can hit that spot.
Yep, I sure hope so. All right, let us move on to the next fight. We have Ricky Simón going against Jack Shore. This fight is so high level. We have Simón, who is 29 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Jack Shore, 27 years old, 5'8" with a 71-inch reach. Jack Shore, 2 years younger, 2-inch height advantage, and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Ricky Simón is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss against Rob Font, a decision win against Ray Borg, a submission win against Gaetano Perello, a decision win against Brian Kelleher, and then a knockout win against Rafael Assunção. As far as Jack Shore, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Noeline Hernandez, a submission win against Aaron Phillips, a decision win against Hunter Azure, a decision win against Ludovic Shalinian, and then a decision win against Tamir Valiev. This fight's so good. I mean, we have a fighter in Ricky Simón who's literally 19-3. We have a guy in Jack Shore who is 16-0. It doesn't get much better than that. Really looking forward to this one. Probably one of my most anticipated fights on the entire card, honestly.
Yeah, this is a great fight, and it is going to be a grappler's delight. Both of these guys on the right side of 30. You know, Simón 29, Shore 27. Shore's the bigger dude, 2 inches taller, 2 inches of reach here. It's Simón who has 6 more fights and about 80 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Shore. He's been doing this about 2 years longer, 5 more UFC level fights, and about, 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. Simón, 48% finisher, Shore, 75% finisher. But at the UFC level, these guys are finishing at about the same rate. 3 of 8 for Simón, 2 of 5 for Shore. So they're both right around 40% when they finish their fights at the UFC level. Simón has been finished in 2 of his 3 losses. Jack Shore's never been finished because he's never lost. If we look at the striking numbers, from what I've seen on tape, I feel like Jack Shore should be the better minute winner on the feet. He's looked fantastic with his striking lately. His 1-2 down the pipe looks really good. But Simon's a good boxer too here. So Simón lands just about what he absorbs, 3.04 landed, 3 absorbed. He gets out-volumed, 43% striking accuracy, 3 knockdowns in 10 fights. He's landing a knockdown on 0.8% of the significant strikes that he's landing, showing 65% striking defense, and he's been knocked down twice in 10 fights, 0.25 knockdowns allowed. Jack Shore is almost doubling up his opponents in volume in terms of significant strikes landed. 4.18 landed, 2.27 absorbed, 60% striking accuracy is very impressive. He does land a lot of ground strikes. But he's got 2 knockdowns in 273 strikes landed. So he's got good power, and he's never been knocked down. When it comes to the grappling, both these guys are very active. About 9 takedown attempts per fight for Shore, about 10 for Simón. So both of these guys are looking to win minutes in the grappling. But when you look at the numbers overall, you see Simón getting 54% of his takedowns, while Shore's getting 42%. 6.76 per 15 minutes for Simón, 4.13 for Shore. But Simón is out-controlling his opponents at about a 9-to-1 ratio on the ground. 33% control time for, 3.6% control time against. While Shore while he's taken down his opponents 18 times and he's only been taken down twice, he's only out controlling his opponents at about a 3.5 to 1 ratio, which is great. I mean, those are really good numbers, but just in comparison to Simon, it's Simon who's doing the better job of not only getting takedowns at a higher clip, getting more takedowns per 15 minutes, but using those takedowns to win minutes on the ground. So I got to give a slight grappling advantage here to Simon because I think his wrestling is a little bit better, while Shore is going to have the better judo for sure. And they're both just really top-notch grapplers, but they're really trying to be the one on top and win minutes. When we compare the strength of schedule here, I mean, that's all Ricky Simon. Way better ratio, way more experienced competition, way better wins. Simon's more experienced at the UFC and pro level. Simon is the better wrestler. Simon is the better minute winner in the grappling. And Simon has faced the way better brand of competition. And Ricky Simón is the underdog in this fight. It's a very intriguing matchup. Look, I think this is going to be one of those fights where people are torn because it's hard to ignore that plus money on Ricky Simon sitting around plus 140, plus 145 I saw yesterday. But Jack Shore has looked so good in his last few fights that I see why he's the favorite in this fight, Brady. But when we look at the numbers, they're trying to tell us in no uncertain terms that, look, Simon's got a lot of advantages going into this fight, and his wrestling and ability to push that pace for a full 3 rounds is next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny you say that because a lot of people in the chat are saying Simón's a lock, Shore's a lock. Yeah, it's a close fight, man. And you take a look at the line, and it's not really. I mean, it opened up minus 115. Jack Shore, he's currently minus 170. Ricky Simón opened at minus 105. He's currently plus 145. I kind of more so agree with the opener. I think ever so slight favorite Jack Shore, even a pick 'em. Like this fight is going to be very, very competitive here. So I think, yeah, I think we're getting a line like this because Jack Shore is undefeated. There is a lot of hype on him, but there's a lot of things to like about Ricky Simón. So I see why people would be taking the dog shot here on Ricky Simón at plus 145. And I'm very curious to see where that line goes as well, because it's getting a little wider. So Shore opened up minus 115, went to minus 125, minus 145, went to minus 155, minus 160, minus 170. I wonder how wide that's going to get. Are people counting out Ricky Simón a little bit here? Because I feel like this is extremely like razor thin close here.
Yeah, I think they are counting him out a little bit. And, let's just, remind ourselves that as Shore, as good as he's looked, Valiev, Shalinian, Hunter Azure, I mean, is a great comparison for this fight, right? Hunter Azure is a good boxer like Ricky Simón is. He's a very good wrestler like Ricky Simón is. And you look at that fight for Shore, it was a very, very close fight. I thought he won it. I scored it for Shore. But look, if he barely beats Hunter Azure, it's hard to make him a minus 170 favorite against somebody like Simón. And everything that Shore does well, Simón does really well as well. And the gas tank on this dude is fantastic. And he's a Washington State champion wrestler from way back in the day. So Ricky is as good of a wrestler as Jack Shore is. This is going to be a very, very close fight, man. And whatever side you're on, I think you bet them to win by decision. And I love the fight goes to decision here as a bet too, because I think it's going to be just such a close grappling matchup. I think that these guys are going to be getting reverses. They're going to be trying to win those minutes on the ground, but I really don't see them being able to attempt submissions on each other because they're going to be so worried about just trying to control positions.
Yeah, makes sense. And that fight goes to decision is minus 180. The fight doesn't go as plus 140. Shore to win by decision is plus 145, and Simón to win by decision is plus 275. So, yeah, I think
this plus 275, man. God damn, I want that line.
It makes no sense. Like Ricky Simón's, if anybody's getting a finish, it's probably Shore, honestly. So Ricky Simón by decision plus 275 is weird. Yeah, that's juicy, man.
I would love to bet that right now, but I do not have access to 5 dimes. If you guys know, I've told you this on Stat Diggers so many times. If you want to give your Uncle Weezy an early Christmas present, find a way to get your Uncle Weezy access to 5 Dime Sportsbook, man, because I love these lines. They're always first to the table. And, man, I would just love to be able to bet some of these lines.
Yep, me too. I mean, that would. Oh, by the way, that Burns Algeo fight doesn't go got hit.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
While we were
talking. Yeah, I mean, it's a great bet, and I just don't have access to it. I mean, but bless you guys who do, because I hope you make a ton of money on it. Minus 130 still a value there. Did it just happen? Yeah, literally while we were talking about it. It goes from minus 110 to minus 130. You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. That's why you tune in to Stat Diggers.
Yeah, the bookies are listening. The bookies are listening, Weezy. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have the last fight on the prelims, I believe. We have Punahele Soriano going against Dalcha Lungiambula. We have Soriano, 29 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. Dalcha is 34 years old, 5'8" with a 76-inch reach. Soriano, 5 years younger. Soriano with a 3-inch height advantage, but with a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Soriano is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Jamie Pickett, a knockout win against Oscar Bijota, a knockout win against Dusko Todorovic, a decision loss to that bum Brendan Allen, and then a decision loss to Nick Maximov. As far as Dalcha, Dalcha is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Daquan Townsend, a knockout loss against Mohamed Ankalaev, Magomed Ankalaev, a decision win against Marcus Perez, a decision loss against Marc-Andre Barrios, and then a submission loss against Cody Brundage, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. So, we'll talk about the line right off the bat. I mean, Soriano's like minus 300 in this fight, which I don't think I can trust him here. But, both guys, pretty terrible cardio. I think Soriano is going to be the better striker here. I like the volume of Soriano. I like the power of Soriano. Dalcha is a guy that he looks extremely dangerous. I think the guy's like a 50% finish rate or less. I guess people might be thinking that Dalcha can come in here and go for takedowns. He did that a little bit in his fight against Marcus Perez. But Soriano, on paper, his takedown defense is 35%, and that was because of the Maximov fight. Fun fact here. Prior to the Maximov fight, wasn't Soriano's takedown defense like 100%? Yeah. And then after that Maximov fight, it was 35%. And I thought he did a good job for the most part in terms of stuffing the takedowns, getting back up when he got taken down. But Maximov just relentless and did that for 15 minutes. Whereas Dalcha, I don't think he has the cardio to do anything anywhere close to that. So I think Dalcha is really going to struggle to take down and hold down Soriano and do it for 15 minutes. And I think on the feet, I do favor Soriano. But minus 300, a guy like Soriano, he does slow down in his own right. I don't love that. And I feel like if this does get out of the first round, it could be just a sloppy fight. So I think I'm going to pass on this one, especially considering the price tag. But I am curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun fight to watch for sure. I kind of think Puna and Dalcha have very similar skill sets. Puna's got a really good wrestling background, a really good judo background. And we know that Dalcha's a judo black belt. He's a guy who does really well in the clinch. When his hips are close to his opponent, that's when Dalcha is going to do his best work, looking for throws and trips and reaps and stuff like that. But Puna's a judo black belt as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I believe that these guys are going to be very well matched when they're in close. In terms of the striking numbers, they're better for Puna. Good power numbers too, as he's landed 4 knockdowns in 5 fights, while Dalcha has landed 1 knockdown in 5 fights. So Puna should be the better one on the feet. I don't really see Dalcha having success getting Puna down to the ground here. Even Nick Maximov, who's a fantastic wrestler with an endless gas tank, really had a hard time keeping Puna down. Puna was always looking to get back to his feet. You can argue that Puna won that fight. So Dalcha doesn't have close to the gas tank to push the kind of pace that Nick Maximov does. So I think that this is going to largely take place on the feet. And Puna's just the better, more dangerous striker. So, I do see Puna getting the win here. The line, though, what is it, like minus 300?
Looks like it's minus 270 on Bet Online for Puna.
Yeah, I'm not laying minus 270 here, but this is going to be a really fun fight to watch. So I don't necessarily need to have my money on this one. In terms of the props, Here, I mean, why don't you read them off for us, and I'll see what the prop template's got.
Like, I feel like fight doesn't go to decision. Minus 185 is decent, but I don't know. I feel like this could just go to decision. They both hit extremely hard. Both guys are really tough, though. Fight doesn't go minus 185. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you look here, both of these guys have 5 UFC fights, and only 5 of their 10 combined fights have finished inside the distance between Puna and Dalcha. So that means you're overpaying by about 15% when you compare that to the implied probability of the line at 65%, and you're overpaying by about 5.5% based on the divisional finish rate of 55.5%. So it actually looks like fight goes to decision at plus 145 is something where you get a 3.73% edge over the books when you compare the divisional decision rate to the implied probability of the line. You get a 9.2% break when you compare their 5 fights going to decision to the implied probability of the decision line, which is 40%. And you get a 5.5% break over the divisional decision rate when you compare it to them going to decision 50% of the time. So it's actually one of the rare threefers where you get a plus money number on all 3 of them for fight goes to decision, sitting right now at plus 145.
Yeah, and you're getting plus money because both these guys are terrifying. But
yes,
but I could see it going to decision.
Yeah, it could. It could. I mean, these guys are they both have a ton of power, but we saw that Puna's very durable. And Dalcha, I mean, like, it looked like he almost got his legs sawed off, and now he's a mixed martial artist, and so I think that he's pretty durable too. It's going to be a great fight.
Absolutely, should be a fun one. But from a betting perspective, I think I'm going to just sit back and watch this one. Move on to the main card. We have Miesha Tate going against Lauren Murphy. I remember watching. I think it was the card with Shavkat on it, and then they pulled up that the Miesha Tate Lauren Murphy fight was off for the following week, and I was very happy about that. But now we have to break it down on this card. We have Miesha Tate, who is 35 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Lauren Murphy, 38 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Miesha Tate, 3 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Miesha Tate, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She had a submission win against Holly Holm, a submission loss to Amanda Nunes, a decision win against Raquel Pennington, takes a long layoff, comes back, and then knocks out a 44-year-old gym teacher, Marion Renault, and then loses a decision against Ketlin Vieira. Lauren Murphy is 4-1 in her last 5 fights, a decision win against Andrea Lee, decision win against Roxanne, a submission win against the very handsome Aliyah Shakarova, and then a decision win against Joanne Calderwood, and then a knockout loss against Valentina Shevchenko. Weezy, kick this one off for us. What do you feel about this one?
Yeah, so Miesha making the move down to 125 for this fight. This is her debut at that weight class. 35 years old. Lauren's 38. Miesha's more experienced, about 60 more minutes in the cage, but actually Lauren has 2 more UFC fights and about 10 more minutes in the UFC cage. So they're pretty similar there. In terms of finish rates, 60% for Lauren Murphy, 58% for Tate, a 33% finish rate for Miesha Tate at the UFC level, and it's 43% for Lauren Murphy. Murphy's been finished in 1 of 5 losses, and Miesha Tate has been finished in 5 of 8 losses. So, Murphy's been more durable and also the better finisher at the UFC level. And she's a little more experienced at the UFC level, and she has a 1-inch reach advantage here. In terms of the striking, both of these ladies absorb more strikes than they land. Both of these ladies get out-volumed by their opponents. Tate's more accurate, a little bit more powerful, but not even much to talk about. Tate has been knocked down once. Lauren Murphy's never been knocked down, and Lauren Murphy has a 59.5% striking defense. And in terms of the grappling, Miesha Tate's fights taking place in control time positions 50% of the time. For Lauren Murphy, it's about 38% of the time. So Miesha spends a little more time in these control time positions. They both out-control their opponents. Neither one of them has spectacular takedown defense. But the big difference, Brady, is the strength of schedule. It's Tate who has the much better strength of schedule, and Tate who has the better wins here. If we look at Lauren Murphy's wins, they're just not she's beating the average opponent that Lauren Murphy beats at the UFC level has 2.57 UFC wins and 3.3 UFC losses. She's never beating anybody that has a winning record. I mean, I could even look here at the advanced stats and just kind of get an idea for what's happening here, because I think it's really important to point out that, Lauren Murphy may have just fought for a title, but she's never beaten anybody to actually deserve a title shot. These wins that she's getting are just not that good. While Tate has wins over, Holly Holm, Jessica Ai, Sarah McMahon, Liz Carmouche, we got Lauren Murphy here with wins over Joanne Calderwood, and that's the Joanne Calderwood that's on like a 4-fight losing streak. Lilia Shakarova, 0-1 in the UFC. Roxanne Modafferi, 4-8. Andrea Lee is her best win, 5-4, and that was a split decision win. And then Mara Romero Borello, 2-5. Barb Honchak, 0-2. Kelly Fashholtz, 0-2. Add up those records, 18 wins and 30 losses are the combined records of the ladies that Lauren Murphy has beaten. And in those in those 7 UFC wins, 3 of those wins are ladies that never earned a win at the UFC level. So to me, Brady, that's kind of the most telling piece of information about this fight. If Miesha has a good weight cut, if she makes 125 without much issue, she's the more experienced fighter overall. She's the better grappler overall. And she's fought and beaten the way better brand of competition. So why not lean the Tate side? But, I also have pretty much retired from betting these kind of fights, a 35-year-old against a 38-year-old in women's MMA, where you've got the 35-year-old making her debut down a weight class. It's just pretty easy to say, I'm going to let this one play out without much money on the fight or any.
Yeah, I won't be betting on this fight either. That's a good point you bring up, though, in terms of the wins of Lauren Murphy, right? Even some of her wins, like the Joanne Wood fight, I really think she lost that fight. The Andrea Lee fight, I really thought she lost that fight. And then, the Mara Marella Barella, Roxanne Modafferi, Leah Shakarova, really questionable wins there. So, I feel like I lean Miesha Tate as well. If she's able to get the fight down to the mat, I like her grappling a lot. Her striking does look improved, comparing it from years ago. So I do like that. But again, I don't think I'll be betting on this fight. We do see that Tate is a favorite, though. She opened up -160, currently -170. And then Lauren Murphy opened up +140, currently +145. I heard some people in the chat talking about the over 2.5. That's -350. And then the fight goes to decision is -275. The fight doesn't go. +195. Tate by decision is +110. Anything sticking out here, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, -350 is a lot to lay, and I mean, you got a 38-year-old against a 35-year-old, so I just wouldn't be. You just never know when that happens. You could just see one of these ladies leaving their gloves in the cage, being like, you know what, I lost this fight, I'm done, and then you're like, God damn it, I laid -350 on the over 2.5, and somebody quit in there, so I'm not touching it, dude, not touching it.
Yeah, I'm not touching it as well. So we have the next fight on the card. Before we get to it, if you guys can please leave a like. Let's try to get those likes up. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy do go live every Sunday breaking down the stats for the upcoming card. And we have probably one of the best fights on the card here. We have Shane Burgos going against Charles Jourdain. We have Shane Burgos, who is 31 years old, 5'11", with a 75-inch reach. Charles Jourdain, 26 years old, 5'9", with a 69-inch reach. I think this tail of the tape is really significant here. So Jourdain is going to be 5 years younger, but it's going to be Burgos much bigger with a 2-inch height advantage and a massive 6-inch reach advantage. I think that's very significant. Burgos is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Cub Swanson, a knockout win against Makwan Amarikani, a decision win against, and one of the best fights I'll ever see against Josh Emmett, a knockout loss against Edson Barbosa, and then a decision win against Billy Corantillo. As far as Charles Jourdain, 3-1, 1 draw in his last 5 fights, a draw against Josh Kulabau, a knockout win against Marcelo Rojo, a submission loss against Juliana Rosa, a decision win against Andre Yule, and then a submission win in the first round against Lando Venata. Weezy, pretty much every single Charles Jourdain fight is exciting. Every single Shane Burgos fight is exciting. They put these two together. This fight's going to be freaking awesome.
It's going to be incredible, man. And it's, because of that, it's almost like it feels like it's just unbettable just because it's like which one of these guys lands the big shot first, because they both are just constantly landing big shots, right? So like you said, Jourdain 5 years younger, but Burgos much bigger. When we look at those experience numbers, Jourdain 1 more fight, 50 more minutes of cage time, but Burgos 2 more UFC fights, 25 more minutes in the UFC cage, about almost 3 more years as a pro for Burgos. Both of these guys, amazing finishers, but 93% finish rate for Jourdain, as he's finished 3 of his 4 UFC wins, and Burgos a 72% finish rate, and he's finished 3 of his 7 UFC wins. Burgos has been finished in 2 of 3 UFC losses. Jourdain finished in 1 of 3 UFC losses. When we look at the striking numbers, Burgos getting slightly out-volumed by his opponents, but he's landing more than 1 significant strike per minute more than his opponents are. So 52.5% striking accuracy is good. 58% striking defense is excellent. And he's been knocked down, it would look like 5 times in 10 fights. So he's a little bit chinny. Jourdain throwing about the same amount of volume as his opponents, landing 1 more significant strike per minute than his opponents, 49% accurate, 6 knockdowns in 8 fights, and he's been knocked down 2 times in 8 fights. So both of these guys throw a ton of volume. Both of these guys' fights are standing around 80% of the time, so we can expect this to be a stand-up war. Because in 18 combined fights at the UFC level for Burgos and Jourdain, we've got a grand total in those 18 fights of only 5 takedown attempts when you combine these two guys. So, look, it's going to be on the feet. Burgos is going to have that reach advantage. Jourdain landing more power strikes, as he's landed 6 knockdowns in 8 fights, while Burgos has landed 6 knockdowns in 10 fights. They've both been knocked down a decent amount too. It looks like just a really close fight to me. Go over here to the strength of schedule. That's where we're going to see the biggest difference, right? 1.47 ratio for Burgos, 1 for Jourdain. Way more total fights on the Burgos side as well. The win's better for Burgos. The loss is better for Burgos. So definitely a strength of schedule advantage here. The striking, very close. The grappling, very close. But look at Burgos, dude. 6 takedowns for his opponents on 70 attempts. So Burgos with that 91.5% takedown defense has been very efficient. It's crazy that Burgos has attempted 2 takedowns and his opponents have attempted 70 takedowns. Yet Burgos is only being outcontrolled 11% to 7%. So that's how efficient Burgos has been at keeping the fight standing. Unfortunately for Burgos, that's one of the best parts of his game. And I don't think Jourdain's going to be testing his takedown defense. It's just about who lands the big shot here. And because both of these guys have got power, because both of these guys have been knocked down at the UFC level, and Burgos has been knocked out twice at the UFC level, while Jourdain has never been knocked out. I'm kind of leaning violence here. And even if you don't hit the bet, you're probably going to just see a complete slobber knocker where each of these guys lands big shots. And at least you'll be able to tell yourself, I think I made the right read, but maybe it just didn't come through. But I think that we're going to see violence in this spot.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if you bet the over or the fight goes in this fight, you'll probably have gray hair if you don't already by the time of this one's over. You'll lose a couple years off your life because these guys are going to stand and bang. So for me, I think violence is interesting, man. The narrative in the last fight for Jourdain against Venata was these guys are both so durable, right? And the fight ends in the very first round. The fight goes, it was a very popular play. And that's kind of the narrative here. Both these guys are, I'd say, very, very durable, although Burgos has taken a ton of damage and he's very, very hittable. But still, I think both guys are very, very tough. It's just both guys are extremely dangerous in this fight on the feet. And I feel like they're just going to stand and bang. So yeah, I think I'd rather be on that fight doesn't go side. And it's actually plus money. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 115. The fight goes to decision is minus 155. And I think that is because both guys are so tough. But I think stylistically, This is going to be a fight where they're just going to hit each other in the face very, very hard. Burgos, no striking defense, but Burgos can absolutely dish it out, landing a ton of strikes with a ton of power. I think the fight does go plus money would be what I would look at in this fight. Any thoughts on that plus 115?
Yeah, 9 of their 18 fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level, right? And 25 of 35 as pros. So while it's only 50% at the UFC level, on the aggregate, it's 71.4% of these guys combined fights that have finished inside the distance. And it's the same in the losses as it is in the wins. So 9 of 18, 50%, but we're only paying 46.5% for the fight doesn't go to decision, getting a 3.5% break there. And only 43% of featherweight fights finish inside the distance anyway. So these guys are actually finishing at a better rate than that. So at plus money, it's not a bad play. And I mean, yeah, they're both pretty durable, but they've both accumulated a lot of damage over the years. And we're seeing some of these refs start to step in a little bit sooner here. Nobody wants to be the next Vyacheslav Kisiev, where you get, escorted out of the arena and are never allowed to ref again. So, I think fight doesn't go here is a good look.
Sounds good. And then as far as the money line goes, Burgos open at minus 150, currently minus 185. Charles Jourdain open at plus 130, currently plus 160. Yeah, can't really get to the Burgos money line here. I don't think he's going to wrestle. I think they're just going to stand and bang. I like the 6-inch reach advantage. I like the volume. I like his striking a lot. It's just this fight is probably going to play out a little bit closer than the line does indicate. Any thoughts on line there, Weezy?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably lean the Jourdain side just because I believe that these guys have got very similar skill sets. It's just that Jourdain would probably rather be on the ground. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think, brown belt or black belt, and he likes to go for submissions, but, he's not an active wrestler, and it's not really his game. He would prefer to stay standing. So I think it's just going to be a stand-up match. I think both of these guys have got a ton of power. So if they're both, have the equal chance of winning minutes and they're both landing big shots, I'd rather be on the plus money side, but I see why Burgos is the favorite. Better brand of competition, much longer, and it's just, been in there with the better guys, so it's easier to think that he gets the job done here.
Yep, absolutely. I like it. And yeah, Violence is really sticking in at plus money there. We'll move on to the next fight. We have, I think, 4 fights to go. We have Matt Schnell going against Mudaerji. We have Matt Schnell, 32 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Mudaerji, 26 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Mudaerji is going to be 6 years younger, and Mudaerji is also going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Matt Schnell, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission win against Jourdain Espinoza, a knockout loss to Alexander Pantoja, a split decision win against Tyson Nam, a decision loss against Rogerio Bontorin, and then a submission loss against Brandon Royval, cashing under 2.5 in that fight with no sweat. That fight was awesome for as long as it lasted. Mudaerji is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut, I believe, was against Luis Smolka, lost that fight by submission, won a decision against Andrei Sukumtop, knocked out Malcolm Gordon, and then won a decision against Saruk Adashev. So this is a fight where I like Mudaerji first off in this fight. Mudaerji has been submitted 4 times. It just Matt Schnell, when you take a look at him, 10 UFC fights, has only completed 2 takedowns. I don't like that. And I think Mudaerji's takedown defense is good, and I think it's only going to be continuing to improve. When he made his debut against Smolka, he was probably 24 years old, something like that. I think his takedown defense has improved since then, and I do feel like this fight's going to play out on the feet. And when it does, I do feel like Mudaerji is going to be the better striker, and most importantly, I guess, is going to be more durable in this fight. I guess I'm curious to see what game plan Matt Schnell comes in with, because if you take a look and watch Matt Schnell earlier in his career, first of all, his fights were super exciting, but he kind of got knocked out a lot. I think he got knocked out 3 or 4 times in the UFC. And then you see in his last few fights against Tyson Nam, Rogerio Bontorin, in those 2 fights, he kind of wasn't really as wild, was really just kind of taking his time in there. It's not typically like a Matt Schnell fight. And then against Brandon Royval, as soon as the fight starts, he goes on there and tries to take his head off, and he ends up getting submitted. So I'm curious to see what Matt Schnell we get. Are we going to get the wild man Matt Schnell? Or are we going to get a more calculated Matt Schnell? Either way, I think it's a good fight for Mudaerji here. I think Mudaerji probably does knock him out at some point. I like the power of Mudaerji. I believe he's finished all but 2 of his wins. I think he finished every single fight outside the UFC in his wins as well. I think Mudaerji gets this done and probably knocks out the very chinny Matt Schnell here. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so Mudaerji's 6 years younger, 2-inch reach advantage here, and he's the southpaw. And then, you would say, oh, Schnell's going to have a huge experience advantage here. And he's got 106 more minutes in the cage, but he's only got 4 more fights, 6 more UFC level fights, twice as much time in the UFC cage. So Schnell's more experienced here, but Mudaerji's younger and longer. Mudaerji also the better finisher here, and an 86% finish rate as a pro, while for Schnell, it is a 66% finish rate as a pro. Schnell has been finished in 4 of 5 UFC losses and in 5 of 7 pro losses, while Mudaerji has been finished in 100% of his 4 pro losses, all of them by submission. So the reason that Mudaerji is the big favorite here is, Matt Schnell has got only 2 takedowns in 10 UFC fights, so that's a problem. And 2.18% control time is absolutely putrid. But if he gets to the fight, especially when he's on his back, he's very live for arm bars and triangle. He's got an excellent triangle. So, he's going to want to get this fight into the grappling realm. And we saw Luis Smolka in Mudaerji's debut go out there and shoot a takedown immediately, get the fight to the ground. Sue got back up, but then he took him down again, wound up subbing him in the second round. But Mudaerji then came out in the Sukumtov fight, and I heard them talk about the changes he was making to his camp. Evidently, Sue had moved over to Dagestan and was going and wrestling with the Dagestanis out there in order to improve his takedown defense. And we haven't seen Sue Mudaerji taken down in the UFC since that match, or since the Smolka fight. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, Sue should by far be the better striker here, but Schnell's a good boxer. So if this does stay on the feet for the full 15 minutes, it should be Sue Mudaerji winning the minutes, but it's not exact. I don't think he's going to look minus 280. But, it's Schnell who's obviously faced the better brand of competition, beaten the better brand of competition, lost to the better brand of competition here. And he probably is the better grappler. We just don't see much out of him. Matt has finished 2 of his 5 UFC wins by submission, though, and Sue Mudaerji's been finishing all 4 of his losses by submission. I think the Matt Schnell submission prop will be something to look for, but I think Sue Mudaerji probably does win this fight, and potentially inside the distance. But yeah, Schnell's been knocked out 3 times in the UFC, but he's only been knocked down twice in 10 UFC fights. So I know that everybody talks about how chinny Schnell is, but by the numbers, he's really not that chinny. He's probably bottom half in terms of being chinny. He's just been knocked out in 3 of 5 losses, but he's absorbed 336 significant strikes at the UFC level, and he's only been knocked down twice.
Yeah, because one of those knockouts was, remember that Sandoval fight where I think it was Sandoval on top, and he landed like this little hammer fist on Schnell, and then it put him out, and then he got out there with his hammer fist. So he had no knockdown in that one, but there was a knockdown in the Pantoja fight and the Rob Font fight as well. Other than that, he has not been knocked down. So I was gonna bring up something. Okay, this comment was pretty funny, and I agree. Schnell fights like Brad Riddell smoked crack. I totally see it.
Yeah, they kind of have that same, like, those shoulder punches. They come straight out from the shoulder. That's how Schnell punches. He kind of keeps his elbows in, and he's working down the pipe. Yeah, it's going to be a good fight. I see why Sue's the favorite here, but, if Schnell comes in with a good game plan, and by good game plan, I mean just get close to this dude, put him up against the cage, try to work for takedowns here, because if you do, you're going to be live to grab a submission against this guy. That's how he's lost all 4 of his fights, and he is a good striker. So, this is going to be up to Schnell to do the veteran things that he needs to do in order to make Sue Mudaerji uncomfortable, even if it means it makes Matt uncomfortable. Because when we see that number there, that 2.18% control time number for Matt Schnell, that's, if you're saying Schnell's going to go in there and grapple this guy, well, I mean, I'm here to tell you that he's spent 80 minutes in the UFC cage, and he spent less than 2 minutes controlling his opponent. So don't count on that. I mean, he could pull the veteran move. He could pull a Kennedy and Chekwu and go out there and turn into the wrestler, put on the singlet. But until we see it happen, it's something we shouldn't be banking on.
I would most definitely not bank on that, because it says 2 takedowns, but in the Sandoval fight, Sandoval kind of like pulled guard and he wanted to be on the mat there. So I wouldn't really even count that as a takedown. I'm not sure why they did. And then also in the Smolka fight, that was his only takedown. He actually had a nice takedown there, but Luis Smolka has a 32% takedown defense. So I can't trust Schnell to go for takedowns. If I did, I probably would be taking a shot on him at this number, but it's not his game. He's phenomenal on the mat, just not a good wrestler. Schnell is a big dog, opened up plus 195, currently plus 220. Mudaerji opened up minus 230, currently minus 260. The over-under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 minus 135, the under 2.5 plus 105. The fight goes decision minus 115. The fight doesn't go decision is minus 125. This is a 125-pound fight, so we got to be kind of careful when we're talking about these violence props. I would lean towards this finishing. I don't know if I'm going to be running to the window on this fight. It doesn't go up minus 125. I was kind of hoping for plus money, but looks like they're kind of all over it here.
Yeah, so at minus 125, that the implied probability of that line is 55.56%. But we have to keep in mind that at the 125-pound weight class, these fights are only finishing 39.9% of the time. So we're overpaying about 15.5% when we compare the divisional finish rate of 39.91% to the 55.5% implied probability of that fight doesn't go line. However, when we compare Sue and Schnell at the UFC level, 8 of their 14 fights have finished inside the distance. That's 57%. So that's 1.6% better than the implied probability of the line. And they're finishing at about 17.2% better than on the aggregate than the 125-pound weight class is. So, getting that fight doesn't go at minus 125, especially in my opinion. If you're of the opinion that Schnell is going to be a dumbass and not grapple here, then somebody probably does land a big shot here because both of these guys have got some power.
Yeah, Schnell is more than likely going to be a dumbass here. I mean, Kundo and Chicken said it. Hoping Schnell goes for takedowns is like hoping Vendera goes for takedowns as well.
And then Spice Lean rubs it in with Strickland, which makes it personal for me. But it's right. It's right. Look, man, if you're not going for that's why we look at the stats. We say, how likely is it that somebody's going to look for takedowns? And every once in a while, we have a fight like we did yesterday, where Kennedy and Chekwu, who has 1 takedown attempt in 8 fights, all of a sudden goes out there, puts on his singlet, and racks up 75% control time against Roberson. It happens every once in a while. That's variance. But, when you're putting your money on a fighter, especially when you're laying juice. Now, you're not laying juice with Schnell here, but when you're laying juice and you're hoping that they're going to do something that we haven't seen them do in the past, you're really putting your nuts out on the table and welcoming them to get smashed, and that's not a good feeling.
Yep, that's why I did not bet Vandera last night. I've been trying to not bet those spots because they hurt bad. You want somebody to do this, and they go out there and do that, and they end up losing. It's terrible. So yeah, try to really stay away from those spots. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have 3 fights left. We have the Leech going against Muslim Salikhov. We got the Leech, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 71-inch reach. Salikhov, 38 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. Leech is 4 years younger. Leech with a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage as well. The Leech is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against David Zawada, a knockout win against Algeo dos Santos, a decision loss against Neil Magny, a knockout win against Santiago Ponzinibbio, and then a submission loss to Khamzat Chimaev. Muslim Salikhov, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Ricky Rainey, a knockout win against Nordine Taleb, a decision win against Laureano Staropoli, a decision win against Elias Zaleski dos Santos, and then a decision win against Francisco Trinaldo. Yeah, this is a guy in Muslim Salikhov I'm not extremely high on. He's 38 years old at this point, but the guy just keeps on winning. I mean, he's looked really good in the UFC. Kind of I want to say he's low volume at times, but he's a very, very good striker. He only attempts like 6 significant strikes per minute, but when he does land, he definitely does make it count. I think it's going to be a fun fight because the Leech is always pretty much in fun fights. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this one is, Weezy.
Yeah, you like Lee because he's younger, he's taller, he's got the 1-inch reach advantage. He's even way more experienced than Muslim as a mixed martial artist here with 5 more pro fights, twice as much cage time, almost 130 more minutes of cage time, and about 3.5 more years as a pro. So Lee is younger, bigger, more experienced, 9 more UFC level fights, 80 more minutes in the UFC cage, a better finisher. at the UFC level here than Salikhov, and he's more durable, as Salikhov's been finished in both of his losses, while Lee has been only finished in 2 of 7 pro losses. So Salikhov is just a precise striker. His nickname is the King of Kung Fu. He's a Wushu Sanda, master of sport. The dude is a very precise and powerful kickboxer. If you make a mistake against him, if he sets a trap for you and you fall into it, he can hit you with spinning stuff. He's got power from all of his limbs, from both sides. He'll switch stances on you too. He's just really good. But I mean, we look at those last 5 wins and they're nice wins, but what Li Jingliang does well is basically the same thing that Muslim Salikhov does well. Even in the Zaleski dos Santos fight, you see that Li Jingliang is just as dangerous in the striking exchanges as Muslim Salikhov is here. He's landing about 0.7 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents are, just like Salikhov is. But he throws more volume, 10.4 significant strike attempts per minute for Li Jingliang. And Li Jingliang's fights are only taking place at striking range about 71% of the time. Muslim Salikhov's fights are taking place at striking range about 89% of the time. So there's more time that Salikhov's spending on the feet, but Salikhov's still only throwing 6.5 significant strike attempts per minute, while Lee is throwing 10.4 significant strike attempts per minute. So he's going to be the busier striker here. And if we just look at the numbers in terms of power strikes, Lee is landing a knockdown on 1.3% of the significant strikes that he lands, and it's 1.43% for Salikhov. But Salikhov's lower volume, so he's only landing 0.67 knockdowns per 15 minutes, while for Lee, it's 0.87. And Muslim has never been knocked down, though, and look at that striking defense. That just goes to show you what a well-schooled kickboxer he is. The fact that, his striking defense is just south of 70%. So he's very difficult to hit. And he's never been knocked down at the UFC level. 67 minutes in the UFC cage, he's only absorbed 158 significant strikes. In terms of the grappling, neither one of these guys is particularly active. Li Jingliang, 33 takedowns attempts in 15 fights. So just over 2 takedown attempts per fight, less than 1 per fight that he gets, 1.25 for 15 minutes, gets out-controlled at a 2-to-1 ratio. So he's not the most efficient on the ground. Salikhov gets out-controlled by his opponents despite the fact he has more takedowns. But, Salikhov mixes in the takedowns, but he's not really looking to win minutes on the ground. In terms of the strength of schedule, it actually leans Salikhov here, as he's got the better fights overall, the better ratio, but Li Jingliang has lost to the better brand of competition. Yeah, it's a good fight, but Salikhov being a big favorite here worries me, because I don't think he's that much better on the feet than Li Jingliang. I think they're both equally dangerous, and they've proved it at the UFC level. It's just that Jingliang, being 4 years younger and having 9 more UFC level fights and about 80 more minutes in the UFC cage, his numbers, which are very good, almost as good as Salikhov's, are just over a bigger sample size, and he's still the younger man with more to gain here. So I'm kind of liking that plus money side on Li Jingliang. I think it's going to be a close fight.
Yeah, it's going to be close, man, because Salikhov, he's the better striker here. It's just as the fight goes on, I don't like the cardio of Salikhov, and I don't like the volume, whereas Jingliang Li, the Leech, is going to be at least throwing more. He has a ton of power in his own right. I just see it being a very close fight. Let's take a look at the line here. It does not really indicate a close fight. We have Salikhov, who is a decent-sized favorite. He's sitting at -170, open up at -140. The Leech open up +120, currently +145. The fight goes to decision, -135. The fight doesn't go to decision, is -105. I'd lean to the plus money on the Leech as well, but to be honest, I can't seem to get Salikhov right. I definitely picked Algeo Zaleski dos Santos against him. I think I picked Nordine Taleb against him as well, and he just keeps on winning. So I don't know if I'm going to touch this one, but I would not really lay minus 180 on a guy like Salikhov. I don't like the cardio. I don't like the volume, but he is a phenomenal striker. Weezy, any thoughts on that money line, or the fight goes or doesn't go?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the violence prop here, 12 of their 21 combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance. That's 57%. If you compare it to the implied probability of the line at minus 105, that's 51%. So you're getting an edge there. And they're finishing better than the division does. The division finishes at about a 48.6% clip. These guys are finishing at a 57.1% clip. So the violence props don't look bad. These guys both land significant knockdowns on over 1% of the significant strikes that they land. So there's a high probability that there'll be a knockdown in this fight with how accurate and powerful both of these strikers are. And neither one of these guys commits to the grappling enough, in my opinion, to suggest that there won't be a big shot landed here. So I'm leaning violence here, but not running to the window because Salikhov can be so low volume.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing that scares me away from a violence bet as well. Just Muslim Salikhov just not throwing a lot there. But yeah, I think I would lean violence, I suppose, but I just don't see myself touching this one. If anything, it's probably a bet on the leech, but I don't know if I'm running to window for that as well. Move on to the co-main event. We have Michelle Waterson going against Amanda Lemos. We have Waterson, 36 years old, 5'3" with a 62-inch reach. Amanda Lemos, 35 years old, 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. Amanda Lemos is going to be 1 year younger, going to have a 1-inch height advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage, and she will be the more handsome fighter as well. Michelle Waterson, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a decision win against KK, a decision loss to Joanna, a decision loss to Carla Esparza, a decision win against Angela Hill, and a decision loss to Marina Rodriguez. Amanda Lemos, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights, a decision win against Mizuki Inoue, a knockout win against Livian Souza, a knockout win against Montserrat Ruiz, a split decision win against Angela Hill, and then a submission win against the very handsome Jessica Andrade as well. So, Lemos, I believe, is the biggest favorite on the card by a mile. I think she's like minus 400. Money's coming in on Waterson at this point a little bit. I feel like first of all, I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than the minus 400 does indicate, but I still lean the Lemos side here. I don't think Waterson's going to have success taking down and holding down Lemos, and I feel like on the feet, it will be somewhat competitive, but I feel like Lemos is going to land the much, much harder shots here. So I like Lemos. Laying minus 400 just about on her does not seem like the best idea in the world, but I do like her to get this one done. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this co-main event?
Yeah, this line is blown out. And, there's reasons to think that Waterson could, have some success in the grappling here, but Lemos is stopping takedowns at an 89% clip thus far in the UFC. So, it's just a blown out line, but those power numbers for Lemos, landing a knockdown on 2% of the significant strikes that she's landing, 5 knockdowns in 7 fights, 1.53 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Those numbers are difficult to ignore, but, Waterson lands 3.78, absorbs 4.5. So, obviously Lemos, the better ratio, the better volume, while Waterson gets out-volumed and outlanded. Both of their striking defense are in similar places here, just below 50%. But it's Lemos who's a lot more accurate, obviously, and a lot more powerful. Waterson, way more experienced, though. 13 more pro fights, 4 more UFC level fights, 125 more minutes in the UFC cage. They're both good finishers, and they've both been finished. It's just that this is a blown out line. I maybe might take a shot on the Waterson side, but like for a quarter unit or something like that. She could potentially win some minutes on the ground here if she goes for it hard enough. And I think Lemos looked, really good in those wins against Lavinia Sosa, against Montserrat Ruiz. And, she got catapulted to the top of the division. But then, she barely made it past Angela Hill. And then she got smoked in the first round by Andrade. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised if the 35-year-old Amanda Lemos, is going to really disappoint some people who are laying minus 400 on a woman who's, basically got a power puncher's chance. So, yeah, I'm staying away from this one. It really looks like Lemos should be the one to get the knockout here to win, to be the far more dangerous, precise striker. But am I laying minus 400 on women's MMA? No chance. So it feels like a straight pass for me.
Yeah, man, it's terrifying, and I thought we might get a deal on that over or the fight goes because Lemos does hit very hard. She did knock out fighters like Montserrat Ruiz and Livian Souza, and Waterson. She's never been. I think she's been knocked down once in her entire UFC career. But no, I mean the fight goes to decision is -185. The over 2.5 is -245. The fight doesn't go is +145. Lemos inside the distance +190. Lemos by decision +105, Waterson by decision +400, and then of course that money line. Lemos opened up -400. She went down to -450, and she was there for a good like 10 days, and then now she's back to -350. So, yeah, I just can't get behind that line. I feel like it's going to be closer, but yeah, I do favor Lemos with that power. I think the power is going to be the difference here. I think she's going to be landing the bigger shots, having the bigger moments, and ultimately win a decision. But yeah, -350, can't get behind it.
Yeah, and it almost kind of feels like this could be similar to the Holm Vieira fight where, maybe Waterson has like some success, kind of like holding Lemos up against the cage, stalling, and keeps it close in the striking exchanges. But, it just kind of feels like Waterson's path is really more to stall and to hug, while Lemos will be the one trying to finish this fight, trying to land the big shot, trying to knock out Waterson. So I see where the line is, where it's at, but I'm just not going to get in the habit of laying that kind of juice on barely any fights, much less a women's fight where they're both on the wrong side of 34 years old. So yeah, man, just staying away.
I mean, if we're talking like handsomeness, then I get the -350 of Lemos. Lemos has a very good haircut, but if we're talking skill for skill, I do think it'll be a little bit more competitive there. But next
that
we have
handsomeness, Brady, it can be very intimidating when you got that square jaw. I mean, it can get in your head as a fighter, so that's something that we got to talk about here. And yeah, it's Lemos, that silver hair, beautiful part there on the side. She got a good barber and she's got a great look to her, very handsome. That's gonna be Michelle Waterson's hill to climb. Let's see if she can climb it.
Absolutely. A haircut you can set your watch to, right? But we have the main event here. And by the way, me and Weezy are going to go live on the MMA Engine YouTube channel twice tomorrow. The first time is going to be for the main event deep dive around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, doing this fight, the main event. And then we're going to go live after the Die Hard MMA podcast for probability, which is typically on a Thursday. We're going to be doing it on a Monday. Weezy is heading out of town, so doing that extra early, which is going to be awesome because we're already going to have the lines, and hopefully we can beat a ton of alignment with some of those props. So be sure to tune in on the MMA Engine for those two shows tomorrow. But yeah, main event, good main event here. Looking forward to it. Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. Ortega, 31 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. Rodriguez, 29 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. Rodriguez, 2 years younger. Rodriguez with a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Ortega is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Cub Swanson, a knockout win against Frankie Edgar, a knockout loss against Max Holloway, a decision win against Korean Zombie, and then a decision win against Alexander Volkanovski. Yair Rodriguez, he is 2-2-1, no contest in his last 5 fights, a knockout loss against Frankie Edgar, knockout win against Korean Zombie, no contest against Jeremy Stephens, a decision win against Jeremy Stephens, and then a decision loss his last time out against Max Holloway. I think this fight's going to be awesome. We have two guys in Yair Rodriguez and Ortega who are not afraid to throw down. Ortega, I think his striking has improved a lot throughout his career. He really showed that off in the Korean Zombie fight, and then got sent to fight Alexander Volkanovski. And I thought the Max Holloway beating was one of the worst beatings I've ever seen. And then the Alexander Volkanovski put an absolute beating on Ortega as well. I thought the fight could have very well been stopped a few different times, but they kept it going. Ortega was able to survive those 5 rounds there, but he has taken some damage throughout his career. He has eaten a lot of significant strikes as well. He's very, very hittable, but he's very, very tough as well. What I like most about Ortega is the fact that he is dangerous anywhere the fight goes. He has a lot of power in his strikes, and then his ground game is his bread and butter. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier today, Weezy. Like, if Ortega was able to, have better wrestling, I think this guy would be pretty much unstoppable because his ground game is so good. But another thing I noticed was you take a look early in Ortega's career. In his first 7 fights, he only completed 1 takedown in his debut. And then in his last 3 fights against the Korean Zombie, Volkanovski, and Max Holloway, who, by the way, all have phenomenal takedown defense, he was able to take them down a combined like 7 times. So I think his wrestling is improving. And Weezy, you're talking about it might be because of Tracy Cortez, and maybe it is. But I do think his wrestling is improving, his striking's improving, and he does have that toughness and durability that I like. Yair Rodriguez, he's going to be the better striker here. Very dynamic striker, great volume as well, some power also. I think he's going to have the opportunity to pretty much tee off on a very hittable Brian Ortega, but I definitely think Ortega can hold his own in the striking for the most part. And if this fight hits the mat in any type of way at any time, Ortega is going to be very live to finish this fight. So, yeah, this fight's awesome. Weezy, definitely looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts on this main event.
Yeah, man. So we like the tail of the tape for Rodriguez. He's 2 years younger, 3 inches taller, and has a 2-inch reach advantage. Love that. When it comes to the pro experience, Ortega, one more fight, about 30 more minutes in the pro cage. They're even on the level of UFC experience, but Yair, one more fight in about 20 more minutes. Both of them good finishers, 54% for Yair, 67% for Ortega, but Ortega's finished 6 of his 7 UFC wins inside the distance, while for Yair, it's 3 out of 8. So Ortega has been a fantastic moment winner at the UFC level, finishing almost all of his UFC wins inside the distance. He's been finished by knockout once in his career, and the other loss was a decision, while for Yair Rodriguez, he's been knocked out once at the UFC level, and he's been knocked out in 2 of 3 pro losses. So when it comes to the striking, we're going to see Yair Rodriguez landing 4.65 and absorbing 4.1, throwing 1.5 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. While Ortega, he's absorbing about 2.5 more significant strikes per minute than he's landing, and his opponents are throwing about 2.3 more significant strike attempts per minute. So obviously, Yair Rodriguez, just by the numbers, appears to be the better minute winner on the feet. It's actually Yair who has worse power numbers, though, as he's only landing a knockdown on 0.4% of the significant strikes that he lands. Well, it's a little more than double that for Ortega at 0.87%. So Ortega's getting 0.54 knockdowns per 15 minutes, while for Yair, it's just under 0.3. Both of these guys very durable. Yair's never been knocked down in 11 UFC fights, and Brian Ortega's only been knocked down once in 10 UFC fights. And he's been in there with Volkanovski, the Korean Zombie, Cub Swanson, Frankie Edgar, Max Holloway. So both of these guys are not used to get to going down on the feet. They're both very durable. But, as much better of a minute winner as it appears that Yair will be on the feet here, it's obviously Ortega that is so much more dangerous once this fight goes to the ground. 3 UFC wins by submission, even though about 5 of the 6 seconds of all of his fights are taking place standing. This guy has not been a good wrestler. He's always been a guy that you say, like, God damn, Brian Ortega's good, but if he could just learn to wrestle a little bit, get his opponent to the ground, he's going to be so much more dangerous to be able to work that incredible submission game that he has, working for those guillotines and those triangles, which are some of the best in the business. So it's I think of this as a striker versus grappler matchup. It's not that simple, but Brian is going to be very dangerous on the ground. And while Brian is dangerous on the feet, it's probably Yair who's a little more dangerous on the feet with that, that flashier repertoire of strikes that he has. So this is a great main event. I think maybe Fight Goes is a good look here, but both of these guys are so live to hurt people, to get submissions. I don't know if I'd want to be. I could take some years off your life, 25 minutes of waiting for this fight to go to decision. But when we look at the strength of schedule here, it's Ortega with the better ratio. Yair fighting the more experienced competition overall. The wins, though, better for Ortega. The losses better for Ortega. So this is a close fight. And Yair Rodriguez looked fantastic on the feet against Max Holloway. But like you said, Brady, very important to note that in Yair, or in Ortega's last 3 fights, we've got 26 takedown attempts.
Good.
And then the 7 before that, only 7 takedown attempts. So 26 takedown attempts in the last 3 fights, 7 takedown attempts in the last 7 fights before that. So now we're seeing Brian start to do what he needs to do in order to be the guy that has more than one way to win, because he can land a big shot in the feet. But once he starts wrestling, man, it's going to make his striking that much more difficult to deal with, because you're going to have to worry about, is he going to try to take me down? And then once he starts trying to take people down, man, that Brazilian jiu-jitsu that he has is so legit, so dangerous, that I think we're starting to see Brian start to round out his game to where he's going to be even more dangerous as he starts to look to wrestle more often.
Yeah, for sure. How many times did he shoot takedowns in his last 3 fights?
I've got 5 takedown attempts in the last fight, 10 the fight before that, and 11 the fight before that. And he's gotten 2, 3, and 2 with the takedowns. But let's talk about something real quick here. In those 3 fights, so 2 takedowns in the Volkanovski fight, but only 54 seconds of control time. 3 takedowns in the Korean Zombie fight, but only 57 seconds of control time, right? 2 takedowns in the Holloway fight, 145 seconds of control time. So only one of those 3 fights, despite the fact that he had 26 takedown attempts in those 3 fights, he's still getting less than 10% control time. So he's not a take you down, a position over submission grappler. You know, he takes you down and he's probably looking to submit you. And if he can't get that submission, it's just going right back up to the feet.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not going to go out there and lay on you in 1 minute. He's looking for that finish instantly. Yeah, we take a look at the line. Ortega minus 150 opened up, currently minus 161. Yair Rodriguez opened up plus 130, currently plus 141. Some spots I was looking at was Ortega by submission plus 470. My goodness. Ortega inside the distance. And then, yeah, maybe Yair Rodriguez by decision could be something to look at, because Ortega is just so tough, man. This guy can take a shot. Rodriguez by decision plus 420. Even that's kind of interesting. But I think if there is a finish in this fight, I kind of lean it being towards Ortega, the more dangerous fighter. If this fight hits the mat, he'll have a good opportunity there. And even on the feet, he has a lot of power. But on the feet, I do think the minute winner is going to be Yair. Ortega, extremely hittable, eats punches with his face. He has the toughness to back it up, but that's not something you really want to do. So, yeah, this is kind of a close fight here, Weez. Any thoughts on the money line? Any props that are really sticking out here?
I'm leaning Ortega here. I like the fact that, you know, he is with Tracy Cortez. And Tracy Cortez is a woman who's done a great job of using her wrestling to win fights at the UFC level. So hopefully that's rubbing off on Brian here. But, you know, we don't have enough evidence of him using that wrestling to win minutes in a way that leads us to believe that he's probably still the same fighter where he can hang, eat some shots with his face, but all it takes is a moment with him. One big shot, one mistake where he can get that guillotine. And I mean, he can get it from anywhere. He can get it standing, you know? So he's just such a great moment winner, but I'm starting to see that round out of his game where not only is he winning minutes on the feet against guys like the Korean Zombie, but he's hanging in there for 5 rounds against guys like Volkanovski and Holloway. So I think he can, you know, be just pesky enough on the feet to wait to find that one moment to where on the ground he can get that finish. He can win that moment and finish the fight. So I'm leaning Ortega here.
Yeah, and even like Ortega inside the distance could be something to look at. Like, he's finished 6 of his 7 wins come inside the distance. The one win that he did not finish was against Korean Zombie, and here Zombie bad twice in that fight. So yeah, I like Ortega. I don't know if I like the money line, but Ortega money line minus 161. But it looks like Ortega inside the distance is plus 175 on 5 dimes, but on FanDuel it's like plus 235. I think I like that better than that money line there. Any thoughts on any props to stick out? Do you like Ortega inside the distance, Ortega by sub, anything?
Yeah, Ortega inside the distance would be a pretty good look, just because he is such a dangerous moment winner, you know, even with the KO too. So that's a good look. But, you know, I think if I were to bet on Ortega, I would be fine with the minus 160 because I think he could surprise us by adding a new wrinkle of being able to win some minutes on the ground here. Yair, not the best takedown defense in the world, but I also think he can keep it close on the feet. So yeah, minus 160. Caesars, William Hill right now is the best line that we can find in Ortega. That's a decent look, but I'm waiting for some of these time props to drop, man. Algeo Burns, let's see where that is by the time it opens up on a book that we can get at. But yeah, man, I like Ortega here.
Sounds good. I'm right there with you. But yeah, we did it, Weezy. 12 fights on this card. I think it's going to be a really good card. Maybe not a ton of spots sticking out from a betting perspective. But I think as far as like watching the fights, I think it's going to be a very fun time. Weezy, I guess all we have left is just letting people know where they can find what we have going on throughout the week. We have a busy day tomorrow on Monday.
Yes, we do. So MMA Engine, check us out there. We're going to be going live before the Die Hard MMA podcast on Pub Sports Radio with our main event breakdown of the Ortega Rodriguez fight. And then after the Die Hard MMA podcast, we'll do probability, give you a good early look at these lines, get them out, get probability out before those lines move so that we can make even more money by having that data-driven approach to find value in these lines. So that's what we're doing tomorrow. I'm leaving for a wedding on Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to try to get to Michigan, which is going to be halfway between where I'm going for the wedding, and do just the tip at 10 o'clock Central Time Tuesday night for you guys. And and then I'm taking the rest of the week off, going to a wedding. So I won't be on as much as I usually am this week, but you can still catch me on the MMA Engine tomorrow and on my channel on Tuesday night. And the only thing that we need to do after that is to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Long Island.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, enjoy your couple days off, Weezy. You definitely deserve it. But yeah, guys, check out the MMA Engine tomorrow. Lots of stuff going on over there. Main event deep dive, and then especially probability as well after the Die Hard podcast. Follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown should be out either tomorrow or probably Tuesday. But yeah, guys, thank you for hanging out. We had a good amount of people in here for UFC Long Island. Should be a very fun card. Best of luck to everybody. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe, all the good stuff. We'll talk to you guys very soon. See you guys.